welcome to my Digitakt tricks and tips video. I bought my Digitakt sometime last year after Digitakt 1, about a month or two after I bought my Digitakt. The Digitakt 2 came out, but I do not regret my decision in buying the Digitakt. It's a great piece of kit and it constantly amazes me how much this tiny little black box can do. Saying that, the learning curve was quite steep. I did rely on a lot of videos online. Thankfully, there's a lot of information out there. The trick I want to show in this video is a trick that I did find from somebody else on YouTube. I can't remember what their name is. You may or may not know. The Digitakt has a main hard drive, library if you like, and within that library, a number of projects that you can save. And let's consider those projects filing cabinets within the library. Within the filing cabinet are certain drawers, which you will call patterns. Each filing cabinet has a number of samples that it can hold. So you may have lots and lots of samples in the library, but the filing cabinet can only hold a certain amount of samples from that library. Each project has 128 slots that you can use to store samples, and those samples are shared between all of the patterns in that project. 128 slots is quite a few. I haven't been in a situation yet where I've run out of slots, but let's say for example you are, and you want to maximize how many samples you can get into one project. If you're using one-shots, you can only have 128 one-shot samples. The trick I saw, make one sample a whole kit. If you've created a track in Logic or whatever your chosen DAW is, and so you've already got your drums already created, you've already got the whole track already created, but you want to transfer that to your Digitakt to maybe do a remix, do a live performance. This is a really cool way of, one, organizing your samples so they're easy to find, also to make sure you can get as many samples into that one project. We're going to go to Logic, we're going to look at track of mine, we're going to arrange all those drum sounds into one sample, and then we're going to put that one sample onto the Digitakt and then apply a slice to each track of a pattern. On the screen here then I have a track of mine that I've been working on, and I want to transfer this track onto the Digitakt. This track has been all created within Logic using samples from sample libraries I have on the computer. Okay, so if I press play, so this track has 8 drum sounds, which is useful because I have 8 sample slots on the Digitakt. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create one sample which includes all 8 drum sounds. So I don't want to do anything in this particular project because in order to kind of get all of the sounds how I want them, I'm going to have to do some editing. So I will go up to File, Save As, and I will save another project, and I'll call it Ambassador Samples. Right, so I've created a new project called Ambassador Samples, and in this project what I want to do, create a loop, and within that loop one hit from each drum sound. So I'm going to move this to the end. We want to take each of our drum hits and arrange it nice and neatly into this loop. Copy over my kick sound, copy over my snare sound, copy over the rim. Sometimes you may have, you can see here on this drum section, I've used 2 samples there within one track. So I will just take the first 2, copy and paste those over. Okay, and you just keep on doing this basically until you've got them all spaced nice and evenly. And paste. Each one is an equal distance apart, and this is going to be useful because when you are in the Digitakt, you can then use your slice tool and we can set our grid to slice at, have 8 slices. Each one will align nicely with the drum sounds that we have. The next thing you want to do is you just want to make sure that all the volumes are roughly equal. So I'll go into my mixer and I will go through the volumes and adjust them so they all look roughly the same.
The other thing I'm doing here is I'm making sure they are all centered, because we can't put a stereo sample into the Digitakt 1. I'm going to go for a ballpoint figure of 18, minus 18 for each drum sound. Okay, so I've got them all roughly around about 18, give or take. I'm going to leave all the EQ and so on the same. I've bussed all of those tracks to this drum bus, and then they're all going to go through my main output before I bounce them. So what I'm going to do, gentle bit of compression, SSL comp. Okay, small amount of compression there, not an awful lot. And I've also got this loud max on here as well. Just doing a bit of compression and bringing up the volume. This limiter, give myself a little bit of headroom there on the limiter. I've just adjusted all of the drums so they are meeting a reasonable volume, so my sample will be of a good quality. One thing I will have a look at is just the reverb settings on here, because you can hear there's quite a lot of bleed from one sample to the next. So I'll just turn some of those off for now and just see how these are the reverb channels here. Let's see how that's affected it. Okay, so I'm going to leave the first two reverbs on, a short and a mid kind of reverb, and take off the long reverb. And I will now go down to bounce, project tools section. I'm going to do as a WAV file. This would be saved as ambassador drum kit. Quite often put down the BPM. So I'll bounce that. Right, so now I've got my sample. I mean, you can do that of any part of the track. So I've just done that with the drum kit at the moment. But say, for example, if you had a bass sound or any synth sounds or anything like that, you could just create a loop of a particular bass sound. Some of these synth sounds. Bounce it down, save it as ambassador synth sound 1 or synth sound 2, ambassador sub sound, ambassador dirty bass, whatever. You can close down your project. Provided you've got your Digitakt all connected up and turned on, go into applications, transfer app, connect your Digitakt, go to explore. It's worthwhile, if you haven't done already, going into this side and creating a new folder by clicking on the plus icon and then writing ambassadors samples or whatever. So over here I've got this ambassadors samples folder on the actual Digitakt, and then on this side I want to go into my computer and I want to go through my documents and find that sample, which is in my Logic projects, ambassadors drum kits. On this side you open up folder you want to drop it into, you grab your drum kit from here, drag it over and let go, and that will copy the drum kit onto the Digitakt. You're done. You can clear finished, test it out here. That's what you do to create your one sample which includes the whole kit. So now let's go onto the Digitakt and see how we will use that. So I'm on my Digitakt now. I've got an empty pattern that I want to add my ambassador drum kit to. So if we just go into our settings, so if we go into our samples, you can see here I've got ambassador samples, and if I go into there you can see now that our ambassador drum kit is in our sample library. So I want to apply that sample to all 8 parts of the Digitakt. Go to track 1, go to source, and we go into our slots here where we've got our different samples, and I want to scroll down and find an empty slot. For those of you who are new to the Digitakt, each project has a number of patterns you can save, and the patterns within a project all share the same sample library, and in the sample library you have up to 128 samples you can put into there. This is why we are doing this one sample equals a whole kit, because it means that in that one sample library, rather than the 128 samples just being individual one shots, we can have whole kits. You could have potentially 128 different kits. We are now searching through the library. We go to ambassadors kit and we select the kit, yes, and then we press no to exit. So now slot 47 is ambassadors kit. So once we've got our sample on track 1, First thing we want to do before we transfer it to the rest of the tracks is we want to slice it up and just select the drum sound we actually want. With track 1 selected, press source and you can see the sound wave there. Then press function and source again, and we go down and select slice. Press yes, and if you press source button you'll see the sound wave. If we use the grid dial, which is G, turn that until the number at the bottom says 8 slices, and now you can see you have dotted lines dividing up each of the drum sounds. Once you've divided up the drum sounds into equal slices, you use E to select the slice you want. So I'm going to start off by selecting slice 1. So now when I trigger track 1, all you hear is the kick. We've sliced up the sample, we've selected slice 1, and now what we can do is we can actually copy and paste that, and this will make life a lot quicker onto each of the remaining tracks. So you press track, hold 1 and copy. You can see it says copy track 1, then we hold 2 and paste. We basically do that for each one. Okay, so now each track has the original sample and it also has a sample sliced up, but also each track has only got the kick selected. We know we want track 1 to be our kick, but now we want track 2 to be the snare and then the rim and so on. So we select track 2 and we just move the slice to slice 2. Select track 3 and move the slice. Select 4, track 4, move the slice to number 4. Select track 5, slice 5, 6, slice 6, and so on. So now we have gone through each track and selected the appropriate slice for each track. So that's basically how you take one sample and you create a whole kit out of it. One of the benefits of doing this as well is, say for example you wanted to have more than 8 drum sounds, but you are restricted to 8 parts. If your kick and your snare don't overlap, you could put both your kick and your snare just onto one track, freeing up a spare track. So let me just demonstrate that. At the moment we have the kick on track 1. So I'm just going to put in a kick on 1 and 9, and then 5 and 13 I want to be a snare. So that's our kick. Now what I can do is I can put in a trigger on 5 and 13, and whilst I'm holding them I can turn the slice to slice 2. That is one way that you can free up space, providing you won't want to mute the snare independently from the kick. Having the kick and the snare on one track is one way to free up some space. Track 1 is kick and snare. Track 2 could be empty and have another drum sound, and you could do that if you had any other tracks which didn't overlap in terms of their sounds. So that's how to free up space in your sample library, by making a single sample a kit out of a single sample.
If you found this video useful, please like, comment or subscribe, or all three. This is the first of my tricks and tips videos for the Digitakt. I will also be doing a video fairly soon talking about, is the Digitakt 1 still worth it in the shadow of the Digitakt 2. Personally, I think it is, and I will go into more detail in that video. Thank you for watching, and like I say, please support us by liking and subscribing and watching some of my other videos.
Thank you.